All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Patrick Precourt here. Welcome to this week's Wholesale Challenge, week number 4. Week 1 is kind of an introductory week. This is our third week of working, 4th week in total. Cool. So I've talked to many of you. We are starting to work on deals, which is really cool. And as you guys may or may not know, okay, if you have deals that you're bringing in, need assistance with, you're welcome to ask for my assistance on them. Just this afternoon or this morning, Mr. Vargas, Rob Vargas, who's part of this group, brought in a deal and went through some of the contract stuff on it. It's a tricky one, no doubt, because it's an auction property being bought from a bank, and there's some terms in the contract that we got to be aware of. And for those of you who will be buying, getting involved with banks that are selling the property, REOs, that kind of stuff, auction properties, there are some key things that you got to be aware of. One of them is to identify whether or not there is a clause in there that restricts your ability to assign the contract. And in this particular contract, there wasn't. Another one is this clause that they stick in there. It's actually a term, and it's got legal ramifications to it, meaning that it's a defined term. It has a purpose to the word. It's called time is of the essence. That's a clause that means something. You see, in the real estate world, as I was explaining to Rob earlier today, there is we have contract dates, performance dates for inspections and closings and things like that. And for all intents and purposes, the truth is they're soft dates, meaning there's a little leeway on them before, things can really be enforced, before you can risk losing your deposit, for instance. You go a couple days over, well, if it's a standard contract, there's enough case history to support that you ain't gonna lose your not gonna lose your contract, your deposit. I see Rob just responded, says assignment approved by agent, now under contract and wholesale. So Rob, do you have it? I know you got your assignment approved by agent. So do you have a buyer for it, Rob? Answer that. He's got a pretty good deal. I'm going to go through not his specific numbers because I don't remember them specifically. I could probably think of them, but the general base formula that we're using on that particular deal to make sure he's safe and protected. But anyways, time is of the essence means that the dates become hard. They become enforceable. They become real. And if you're one day past your closing date and there's no other reason why you didn't close, it wasn't on the behalf of the seller, they can keep your deposit. So it's important to be aware of those things. So if you're new to the contract game and you're getting involved with banks, with REOs, I go as far as not just offering, but suggesting, let me throw another set of eyes on the contract just to make sure you know exactly where you're getting into there. Okay. So anyways, his particular deal, he sent me over. Let me see if I can think of these numbers. They were asking 75. He offered 55. They settled at 65. After repaired value is anywhere from 115 to 130. And Rob, just correct me if I'm off on these. We use a conservative number of 115, multiplied it by 70%. So that gives you whatever, $3,000 or something, minus repairs, right? Yeah. And boom, that's where it puts us. And now most markets won't sustain such a low number, right? I take that back. I didn't. My math was off. I'm sorry. You know what? Why do I bother in my head? There's somebody on this phone right now saying, "Pat, you're an idiot with your math." And so I did this because I just then did the round numbers in my head, and the round off numbers didn't work. And hold on. So we'll do the 115,000 times 20% equals 80. Yeah, so there we go. And that was the number. So you take the low number of 115 times 70%. That gave us $80,500. We subtracted out our estimated high repairs of $15,000, and that gives us $65,000. That's a if you can buy it for 65 and those numbers hold true, that's a good deal. There's a $5,000 to $10,000 assignment fee sitting in that transaction right there. Okay, that's a good deal. If the house is worth more, if it's worth a high end, that's an outstanding deal. Somebody's going to buy it, fix that up, and make 30. They'll make 30 grand on it, and they can make 45 grand on it. So, anyways, that's where that particular deal is. And I'd suggest again, I'd share with you the idea that as your deals come in, I think that's the third one I've reviewed so far. As they come in, let me put my eyes on it, or if you have any questions or thoughts on it. Now, Rob's got a pretty tight diet. He's got about a month to work this deal. They asked for July 1st closing. He countered asking for another week or to July 10th. That gives him a month to get this deal out. Now, I asked if he's got a buyer for it yet, because when we talked earlier, I said, just start pumping this out there, man. It's a good deal. Get it out there. And this, a good deal doesn't last out there very long. This should be a couple days out there, 3 days out. By the end of this weekend, this thing should be contracted up and out the door. It's that fast. That's the beauty of wholesaling, right? I'll continue to ask you, Rob. I didn't ask you this earlier. Auction property. So where'd you find it? Did you bid on it through a realtor? Because most auction sites, you got to go through a realtor, or was it something outside of a realtor? The reason I'm asking Rob that is because, well, he didn't wait for direct mail to land. He didn't wait for, his bandit sign to start drawing incoming calls. He's outbound efforts. What verbiage used for wholesale advertising? Good question. So let's have a little conversation about the legalities of wholesaling. I know we touched on this a bit, right? And this is an evolving piece right here, meaning that some areas don't give a hoot in the world about wholesaling, and some do. I taught an event last January with my buddy Ken Clothier and my buddy Sean Terry, called Find and Flip. And what I was teaching there, of course, I was teaching my business mindset stuff, but then I taught a piece on the changing landscape of the legal side of wholesaling. Okay. And there's two things that they're starting to crack down on. And Ohio is kind of leading the charge to some degree. They're really pushing hard. There's a gentleman I met at the event, and he asked a lot of questions. And he kind of gave me a little, Pat, you're really, I don't know what your purpose is, but you're really kind of just stirring a bee's nest here. There's not a problem. You're making it sound like there's this big problem. I didn't say it was a big problem. I said things are changing, and somebody is going to be the first. Now, in Ohio, there's already a number of people who, the attorney generals have given a hard time to. Well, this same guy, his first name happens to be Robert, too. It's kind of funny. Not this Robert, different Robert. I hear from this guy about 4 weeks ago. Pat, can you help me? I said, what do you need help with? Sends me his cease and desist letter that he got from the commissioner of real estate in California They'd run a sting operation on him, and in one short week, closed down 4 deals of his that were about to close. When I say sting, I'm talking about somehow they got wind of the houses he had under contract. So when I say somehow, this means there were some weaselly little realtors narking on him, basically, because the attorney, the commissioner, real estate commissioner, got hold of the sellers and then set it up to where convinced the sellers that Rob was, ripping them off or something, and then all of the correspondence, emails, communications, everything that Rob had with the seller were going directly to the commissioners. So they were able to kind of build and shape a case any way they wanted to. It was a true sting operation. And at the end of the day, they were saying they couldn't find that he was, harming them or fraud or anything like that, because he wasn't. He's a good guy. He does business straight up. But they did claim that he was operating without a proper license, real estate license. That's at the end of the day, that's what this all came down to. All right. And the area, in this case, that they most focused on was the idea that he, and this is going to start answering your question, Rob, he was showing houses that he didn't own, marketing houses that he didn't own. This dude was doing open houses, everything at these houses that he didn't own. You say, well, what's wrong with that? Because that now means he's selling a house for someone else without a license. That's exactly what you need a license to do. So he got caught. It'll be the first of many. There'll be some areas that will go nuts on this. Maryland's not far behind. Washington State's not far behind. They're starting to rumble. And then there'll be some areas such as Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona. They will never care. It won't change. Just like it's following the same process it did in the short sale world. And Connecticut just happened to be one of the ones who led the path in the short sale space when it started changing and changed quick. But now it's going on in wholesaling, and you say, well, why is it changing? Well, the laws, I say laws, they're not laws, they're rules. The rules aren't changing. It's the enforcement and interpretation of them that's changing. And it was never an issue prior because there just wasn't enough of it going on. But now everybody in the world teaches it. Everybody in the world thinks they can get rich overnight for doing nothing. There's a low bar of ethics and quality in the industry. And then that's where people, homeowners, consumers, eventually do get harmed. Then they file complaints, and that's where it all starts. Just like it did in short sales. Second, people started taking advantage of people in short sales. It all followed the same exact path, right? So you say, well, how do you stay out from underneath that radar? There's a long-winded way, Rob, to get back to your question, right? What verbiage used for wholesale advertising? Awesome question. What you don't want to do is market somebody else's house for sale. Can't do it. Now, if you were to ask that question, but what if I have a real estate license? Is it okay then? We'll get back to that, okay? We'll get back to that. I'll tell you why in a second. Because everybody thinks, even the state of Ohio, Attorney General and real estate commissioner, if you just get a real estate license, this is okay. And they're dead wrong. They're even more wrong doing it with the license than without. Without a doubt, without a question. I'll tell you why in a second. Shows you how stupid people who are supposed to be smart are. Kind of crazy, right? So what you don't want to do is market a house that you do not own. What you do want to do is market exactly what it is you're selling. If you remember back from day 1 or day 2, fireman, we talked about We're not selling real property. We're selling chattel, non-real property. And there's a definition, a legal definition for chattel. Anything that's not real property is chattel. This battery is chattel, as is my cell phone, as is that board, as is my microphone. It's all chattel. As is this paper, and anything I write on it in the form of a contract is chattel. You don't need a license to sell chattel. When we market for a wholesale buyer, we specifically have to market the contract for sale, not the house. Contract for sale, not the house. So what's the difference, Pat? Well, the contract will have the terms of the contract. The house will be identified by one of the two legal ways that we identify real property: legal address or postal address. That's it. So when you use one of those two, legal address or postal address, you are unarguably marketing a house for sale. When you define a contract, I have a contract, 2-bed, 2-bath house, after repair value of $115,000 to $130,000, needs 15 repair. Contract at X amount of dollars. Contract for sale, assignment fee, X amount of dollars. See the difference? Could you put located on Elm Road in Cromwell, Connecticut? You could. It's not an address. That can't get you to my house, right? That's not an acceptable way to identify a property, unless, of course, it's the only house on the street. Follow me on that? Now, if you tried being cute about it and put 2 Elm Road, Cromwell, Connecticut, and then gave me a picture of the house too, I'd say, although that's not a legal address and it's not a postal address, I can find that house. Somebody could argue, and you might lose that one. You know what I'm saying? So the proper way to market these is market a contract for sale. High equity house needs 15 grand in repair. X amount of dollars assignment fee. Once they are interested and commit to the next step, now you can absolutely show them what they're buying, because you're no longer marketing or selling the house, right? You're just showing them the depth of the contract. That's totally different. Now I'm telling you the exact way how not to get in trouble, how to stay so above the board, nobody could touch you. Can you choose to do a little gray? Yeah. And in some areas, I'd even be an advocate of it. I would just be aware of the ebb and the tide of what's going on around you. Okay. Now, as you pick up in business and you're doing a few properties, 5, 6, 8 properties a month, another issue comes into play. And that's that funny F word, fraud. It goes like this. If you have a track record of writing contracts to buy a house with zero intention ever to close on those homes, then what you say you're doing and what you're doing are clearly different, and it's by intention. So in other words, it's a perpetration of fraud. Now, do you need a track record to support this? Yes. They got to see that you've been buying a bunch of houses and you're not closing on any of them. So they say it was never your intention to close on a house, therefore you misrepresented yourself on a purchase and sale agreement. Yes and yes. And I'd stand behind. be on their side in that argument. And if you remember back to last week, our conversation on contracts, we already have the antidote. Quite honestly, that's what pushed me into using the option agreement in our wholesaling operations. So with an option agreement, like we went through last week, totally different than a purchase and sale and completely handles this issue. An option agreement, you never commit to buying the house. You never say you're going to buy it. You say, I want the right to buy it or not to buy it. That's all you're asking for. And that's what your option fee pays for. I want the right to buy it or not buy it. I'm not saying I'm buying it. I'm not saying I'm not buying it. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just going to buy the right to make a decision later. That's all an option agreement does. See the difference? So you assigned it away. This one I did. And that one I didn't because the numbers were wrong. I just didn't execute my option. I bought the right to do whatever I wanted to do with it. See the difference there? So the two biggest issues are one, and I'm going to get into a third in a second. One, when you, the wholesaler, market a house for sale that you do not own, that potentially could be a problem. In most areas, well, in all areas, you're required a real estate license to sell a house that you do not own. Some areas are starting to enforce it. It's not that any of the laws are changing. Some are starting to enforce it. The second is how you represent yourself. Particularly in Ohio, they got really hung up on the idea that you're representing to buy the house and you have no intention of doing so. That's fraud. Fraud is an ugly space to be in because that gets like criminal. It really does. So I don't even like playing in there. And the third is this. And this one won't come up now, but when you're doing 8-10 properties a month, it could come up if you still insist on using a purchase and sale agreement. That's the idea that you can't verify that you have consistent funds to close these deals. And therefore, it supports the idea that there was never any intention to buy them. Get that? Putting up $100 deposit and not having any real funds to close just supports the case that you had no intention of buying and pulls it back in the space of fraud when you're using a purchase and sale agreement, and bam, they got you. So video's buffering. So let me ask you this, Steve, I think you said that last week too, right? Rob, just because I know you're there, is your video streaming okay for you? So I'm wondering, Steve, if your download speeds are hurting you a bit on here. It'd be a bummer. That would drive me nuts. I wouldn't be able to watch the video. What do you pay for the option? So it's a good question. So in this space that we're playing in, right? Homeowners don't even know options and option fees or anything like that. They don't really know the value of what the agreement is that they're agreeing to. They should charge more. I would suggest in a wholesaling deal, you're going to pay anywhere from $100 to $1,000. Typical will be $100 to $500 to secure a good, solid option. Okay. There'll be most that you'll be able to give them anything, $100, $200. Say, listen, this is I'm going to give you $100 here, $200 here, it's non-refundable. Goes in your pocket. It's an option fee. It's not a deposit. They'll be like, that's awesome. Nobody else has offered me non-refundable money. Follow me on that? If you get into somebody who, really understands options or in commercial, we have a property that we're selling on an option. They gave us a $50,000 option fee, non-refundable. Big project, big property, but still, that number is negotiable. But Steve, for the case of what we're doing here, keep it low. Okay. Your question might be, well, Pat, what if they don't close? Or what if I can't close the deal? All right, good. This is what I suggest, okay? Because in an option, with a non-refundable option fee, you'll lose that option fee, of course, because as soon as it leaves your pocket, it doesn't come back. Okay. So what I say here is don't go into deals that you're not confident that you're going to finish executing. Do good deals. So I want you to take care of them as well as yourself, right? You want to run an awesome business? You want to get referrals? Take care of them as if you're dealing with your parents' property. You know what I'm saying? Look at it that way. The deal, Rob, that you wrote today is a good deal. Okay. You'll find a buyer for it without exception. But don't be making crappy offers or unthought through offers just to get a deal done. I'm not trying to slow you down, make no mistake. I don't want you doing crappy deals, Here's a question. Can we advertise like this? Contract for sale, North Las Vegas, high equity, 15 grand in repairs, assignment fee. So far, yes. Can I also list potential ARV and profit or flip? Absolutely. Those have nothing to do with real property. That's just the terms of the contract. That's the terms of the contract. Totally cool. That's just chattel. That's just chattel. Now, Rob, you had mentioned, you originally asked me an offer price of 65, then you threw in that buyer's premium. I'll be honest with you, because that's how we do this. The buyer's premium will cut into your wholesale fee a little. You're gonna have to work with people now. Okay. I didn't know that was, the price would end up that high. But you still got a deal here. You'll still make money. That might cut into your 10 grand. Might not, but it might. Okay. That puts it a little higher. Rob says streaming was good, but then it froze. Okay. Never backed out of a wholesale deal. I've always closed. Haven't done too many, but that's because I want to know I can close. Yeah. So you got to find the fine line there, Steve. That's a good comment, and kudos to you for doing what you say. The reason why attorney generals are getting involved is because there's scumbags out there, and they don't take care of people as if they're, taking care of their parents. And that's the way we should look at this business, And I'm not talking about just, new people, newbies. I'm talking about there's some big dudes out there that run shitty deals. They don't deal with people the way they should, so kudos to you. That's awesome. And I would caution you, don't get too cautious. Find the balance, So that formula that I used, the 70% of the after repaired value minus repairs, that's a very standard, been around forever formula. I adjust it. I got to be close to 78%, maybe even a little higher, depending on the area, the location of the house. I can't buy that cheap in our backyard. I got to bump it up a little, right? But think about this, right? So if you take $200,000 house, that's its after repaired value, needs 20 grand. Times 70% or times 80 is use a higher number, 80%. It's 160 minus 20, right? That brings us down to 120, 140. Okay, that's our buy price. Do our 20, we're in a 160. We still got room for, we'll still make $28,000 on that deal. The rest will go to stuff. You know what I mean? Stuff. Add another 10 points on that. That's another 20 grand on that deal. Follow me? So in a wholesaling world, you do need that little extra buffer. You got to do it at 70 or 75%. So there's that little wiggle room for the buyer. Pay that extra assignment fee. But that's a good, safe number. That's why, Rob, when you gave me those numbers, I said, that's the deal all day long, provided the numbers hold true. Okay. So we'll wrap up this little segment here. Be conscious of what's happening in your area. Be aware of what changes are going on or not. Okay. Like I said, there's some areas like, Tampa, Atlanta, Phoenix, Austin, areas like this that they just don't care. They just, whatever happens. It's kind of like Wild Wild West. Other areas are a bit uptight. Is it Ohio, Washington State, Maryland, California? I forget where this one is, Sacramento or something. A little more uptight. So I would be aware what's going on. Would I be afraid to use a purchase and sale? No, I wouldn't be afraid. I would caution you on how you market the property. What they see on the agreement, they'll see the address once they see the contract they're buying, right? It's how you market it that's significant here. Okay. So just kind of bear that in mind. Now, there are some MLSs that actually allow you to take contracts and put them on the MLS. Those areas clearly don't give a hoot as to whether or not you have a license. Oh, I was going to tell you too about the realtor. Why does having a realtor license not fix this problem? So you're a wholesaler. You want to market my house. You have my house under contract to sell. You want to market it for sale, and you want to use the address. You can't do it because now you're acting like a realtor. What if you had your license? Could you do it? The answer is no. You're even doing more disservice. And here's why. Because if you're a licensed realtor, right, you say that I can market your house for sale because I have my license. So in other words, I can represent the seller in a sale, because that's what the license says, right? I can represent the seller in a sale because I have my license. Totally cool. And once you go there and you make that claim, that statement, in kicks your fiduciary responsibility. Your fiduciary responsibility says that you'll recover for them as much as possible. It doesn't say you're going to get it from them on the cheap and wholesale to somebody else and make a profit off of their cheap. See the immediate conflict that's created there? Yeah, the Attorney General in Ohio and the commissioner, real estate commissioner, both say it's okay. And they're dead wrong. They're not thinking through it. They're thinking, hey, we can get them to pay more licensing fees. That's all they're thinking. Kind of crazy, right? So I'll open this up to you guys if you have a Steve says I just refreshed the page. It's all great. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know why it gets all funky sometimes. Hopefully the recordings come through much more clear. So my intention tonight wasn't really to get into all that stuff, but that was all kind of cool. It was really to kind of give us a little emotional and mental kind of bump here, right? I'll field any questions you have, real estate wise, wholesaling wise, or others, as we're here, right? But what I really kind of want to remind you guys of, and gals, is that the results and the outcomes that we get in a little exercise like this are directly a result, a reflection of the decisions that we make leading up to them. The decisions that we make now, yesterday, tomorrow will dictate the results we get. And I say this in such a way because I was talking to somebody yesterday and said, yeah, I'm like, well, what's going on, man? And they go, well, nothing, really, we got nothing to do. I'm like, what do you mean you got nothing to do? They're like, yeah, well, we sent out some mailers. We haven't gotten, they haven't hit yet. They haven't come back yet. I'm like, so you're making a decision to do nothing. Just sat on the phone. They kind of didn't know what to say. I said, let's just be clear. When you, I go like this, I go, no, hold on. I want you to hold up your hand. Now turn your palm towards your face. I just pause like this. I can't see him. I go, what just happened? He goes, what do you mean just what? You told me to put your hand up. I know, but what happened? You put your hand up. What happened after that? After you paused? It was nothing. Again, nothing, because you didn't do anything. I go, now slap yourself in the head. What happened then? He goes, I slapped myself in the head and I felt it. Yes. Every time you decide, there's an action that follows. Every time there's an action, there's a reaction. But when you choose not to decide, nothing happens. Rob, you decided to go out somewhere and find some auction property somehow, somewhere. I was dealing with Susan 2 days ago, same thing. She started outbound calls on Craigslist. There's a third, I forget who it was, contractor reviewed at the beginning of the week, same thing. They just decided to take action and do something, okay? So I'm putting this in your table right now to remind you that how quickly you move, how much you get back, how many contracts you have in your hand at any given time are just a function of your decisions. That's all. Want more? Make different decisions. Start owning the fact that you can have pretty much anything you want. You just got to make the decisions that allow that to happen. You guys get me on this? Okay. So we're in a couple, 4 weeks into this thing, right? If I had said 4 weeks ago, you have 4 weeks. That's it. At the end of 4 weeks, something of great value will be removed from your life, and we could identify that. So I mean, something that you'd give your life for, like that type of value. I'm going to remove that from your life. You have 4 weeks to get the deal under contract. Every single one of you would have that done. If I set that number at 3 deals, it would be done. If I set it at 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks, it would be done. You would get it done. Mary, you've heard me say this many times. We, you, I, and everyone we know has in their lives everything to the exact degree in which they deserve it. It's hold true for me, for you, and everyone we know, without exception. Want more? Deserve more. How do you deserve more? Make different decisions that allow certain actions to get certain results. It's as simple as that. It's really no more complicated than that. Now, if that little voice in here is saying, but, I don't know enough, but I don't know who to call, but I can't put out mailers, but I'm on a limited budget, but I don't have time, but. You control that voice. You choose to listen to it or not to listen to it. You choose to slap it down or empower it. Those are choices too. And when you choose just to ignore its existence instead of kicking it down, you're acknowledging it. You're empowering it. Ignoring it does not make it go away. Ignoring it allows it to grow, to gain strength. The only way you break that is to slap it down. Say no. And you make a different decision right there and then. So I thought this would just be a good time to share some of those thoughts with you. Okay. Like, I know how the curve goes. Everybody always starts out very excited. Some of the enthusiasm wears off. We get busy. I see a couple of people drop off on the call. I understand. I get it. Doesn't make it okay. That's why we're having this call tonight. Cool? So listen, do me a favor, right? We're going to end this call. I'd like to see you guys write something down. Each and every one of you, send it in. A decision you made that's going to get a different result, a different outcome. Do it right now. Don't wait on this. Write something down, decision you're making now. It's going to get a different result, different outcome. Cool? If you need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. It's a couple of you I think I still have to finish our one-on-ones with. I'm sorry, it's just been a little busy, but I will get to you if I haven't spoken with you yet. You guys are awesome. Listen, this is where we got to kind of push hard, push through the hump, and get this thing going. Okay? Look forward to hearing from you. Peace.